food is only good for you in any amount. Poison is only bad for you in any amount. Like if we see these shows that are like, so tragically sad, but apparently they're entertainment for people, is like a show like My 600 Pound Life or something. There is no one in the history of humans that has become 600 pounds eating organic beef and whole eggs and organic fruits and vegetables. It's never happened. It can't happen. That's cellular dysfunction that is changing our genetic expression in a completely unnatural way.
Welcome back to I Just Have to Say with Laura Max. I'm here with Justin Nault. Justin is a nutritional therapist and the founder of Clovis. I am so excited to have you on the podcast today because I talked to you on the phone prior to this conversation. I could have easily recorded our phone call. It was one mind-blowing statistic after another, and I knew I had to have you on there. So welcome to the show, Justin. I want you to start this episode by telling your story. You're a nutritional therapist. You have done a ton of research about how we have essentially slowed down our metabolisms. And that is the reason why 75% of Americans qualify as being overweight or obese. That is a mind-blowing statistic. Tell us your story. Tell us why you have essentially dedicated your life to helping people understand their own metabolisms and feed their body in the way that we were meant to feed our bodies.
The end point is I'm here today after, 10 years of really deep research, but over 20 years of my own personal wellness journey. Just coming to the realization that telling humans to eat less food is the worst advice we've ever given the human species ever. And it's the reason for the obesity epidemic, the chronic healthcare issues that we have, and the infertility rate, which is huge and a big problem for keeping our species going. But the way that I got here is super unorthodox because I don't have, academic training in this or anything. I grew up as a chubby kid, we'll say. I went into high school as a freshman, about 5'1", 5'2", and like almost 200 pounds. But I grew up watching Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I had like tremendous body dysmorphia that followed me all through my 20s. And, I started lifting weights and dieting when I was 15. And then I started playing music and I got accepted into Berklee College of Music. I went to Boston and then I ended up moving to Nashville where I got in the music industry. So I was doing 300 shows a year. I had a reality TV show on ABC by the time I was 25. So my appearance was now literally under a spotlight all the time, which made my body dysmorphia and my mental health and what I didn't know at the time, my lack of self-love, which I worked on later, was a tremendous issue for me. And I was drinking a lot of alcohol and all these things. So it was really like in my late 20s. I had the TV show at 25 and I was probably 26, 27 when I was like, I work out harder than anyone I'd ever met, right? It's like, I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I was a boxer, CrossFit twice a day, bodybuilding, everything. And I was always just like, still kind of like soft, kind of chubby. And I started researching nutrition. I'm like, this seems like it's probably important. And that was when I found the paleo diet. I did my first paleo reset, lost like 10% body fat. Like it was like magic. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, how is this? Why have I been working so hard? This is like, this is an unfair advantage, So I was doing well in the music industry at that time, and my days were my own to do whatever I wanted. So I actually became a nutritional therapist, like as a way of being like, I want to be able to teach myself how to get healthier. And around that time, my niece, Savannah, was born terminally disabled. So she was having over 300 seizures a day. Within the first week of life, she was moved into the pediatric ICU, and they hooked her up to all these machines. They did over $1 million in testing. And this was where I got introduced to the Charlie Foundation, which is an organization that helps families manage ketogenic diets for the therapeutic treatment of epileptic seizures. So Savannah did not turn out to be epileptic, but in the beginning, when they don't know what's happening, that's how they treat all infants, toddlers, babies, whatever. Like, okay, well, they're having seizures. Let's put them on a keto diet. But Savannah was so severe. She turned out to be one of 96 living cases in the world of her diagnosis eventually, which was KCNQ2. Yeah, it was crazy. So they actually eventually put her on a feeding tube. It's called G-tube. Put a little hole in the baby's belly, and then they feed them through a tube. So our tax dollars subsidize a ketogenic baby formula in all pediatric ICUs that is made by Gerber, who's owned by Nestle, that is called KetoCal. And KetoCal is high fat, low carb. But as you'll see in more of our conversation today, mainstream medicine does not pay attention to food quality ever. So that high fat was almost exclusively vegetable oils, seed oils, and it had artificial flavors and colorings. And then all the vitamins they're putting in there are like synthetic vitamins, which are sometimes not using the usable form for the human body. And because of my own research, I was like, I knew just enough at that time to be really annoying to doctors. So I brought it to the neurologist's attention. And like a scene from a movie, I call it my Matrix red pill moment. He looks at the bottle and he says, I never thought to check that, just by looking
Wow.
at the ingredients. And that was it for me. I became extremely angry. And I have a very masculine background. I guess you could say toxic masculine background that I've had to heal from as well. But I went home and I used food dehydrators and processors, and I made a paleo superfood powder formula that was basically like cleared by Vanderbilt Neurology, and we put it in Savannah's G tube. And then I'd read the 4-Hour Work Week, and I wanted to start a business. So I added collagen protein to it, called it the Perfect Paleo Powder, and launched my first ever supplement company and sold it to CrossFitters. And here we are. That was 10 years ago. Yeah.
Incredible. I mean, I've heard my whole life that the secret to weight loss, right, or to maintaining your weight is calories in versus calories out. And I remember, Justin, the first time I heard that, I was 16 years old, and I went to my local 24-hour fitness. And I had an evaluation because they were trying to sell me a personal trainer, which I eventually did purchase from them. Mm-hmm. And they tested my resting metabolic rate. And my resting metabolic rate was 1,500 calories a day, which meant that if I didn't move, right, if I didn't do anything, I was going to burn 1,500 calories a day. And I remember them explaining to me that on top of that, I would probably burn an extra 500 more if I went to the gym. Mm-hmm. And then I needed to keep my calorie intake to about 1,800 to 2,000 calories a day, 1,800 if I wanted to lose weight, which as a sophomore in high school, reading all the tabloids and watching Paris Hilton and Lindsay Lohan party at 95 pounds or whatever, that was my interest, right? And I remember focusing on that. And I remember having the thought that, yes, there might be chemicals in these protein bars that they are selling me, but those things are not going to make me gain weight because they have the right caloric amount. And I think most of us still think this way. Why is it that you've said that the worst advice we've ever gotten is that we need to eat less? And it doesn't, I mean, I talk to my husband about this all the time. Biologically, we have this desire to consume so much more food than we're being told we ought to consume in order to be healthy. Why is it that these two things are not, why is it that we're not going to lose weight or be healthier by eating less? If our metabolisms are burning a certain number of calories per day, why does it actually make us gain weight to eat these chemical compounds that aren't necessarily more caloric?
Food doesn't make you gain weight. Poison does. Now, food can make you gain weight if you're doing a ton of bicep curls and eating, red meat and apples. Like, you're going to build muscle, you're going to build lean tissue that comes from food, right? So anabolism, your body rebuilding and repairing or building new tissue, unless you have cancer, which is like totally abnormal, but like the growth and repair of tissue is totally normal. It's a healthy thing. It's what your body does while you sleep with the food that you give it, the substrate that you give it, right? I guess if we go back in time, the reason why you and me and everyone else was programmed to believe that it's all about calories is because Philip Morris, who owned all the cigarette companies, got whacked with a lawsuit that said they now have to tell the world that cigarettes cause cancer, which is very bad for business. So what they did was they bought about 85% of food companies.
Nobody knows that. Like, nobody knows this, Justin. This is not like public.
A quick Google search, you can find out. It's not promoted to us, right? But it's the reason why you think, and I thought, that calories are the way to health. Managing calories is the way to health. Because it's far cheaper to create pseudo foods, ultra processed foods that come in a box that have a long shelf life, that are full of chemical poison and no nutrients, vitamins, minerals, protein, fat, carbohydrates, all these things. And to tell you, hey, look, this little bar, it's only got 90 calories in it. And calories are the reason that you're getting fat. So eat this thing. So what ends up happening is, like, let me ask you, if you've ever met let's say obesity I don't like the term. It's a loaded term, but it's a medical term for someone who's more than 30 pounds overweight. So it's just, I use it. It's in the vernacular, right? But if you find someone that's obese and you go ask them how they feel every day, they're going to say, I'm always tired. I wake up tired. I have low energy. I'm cold all the time. My teeth are sensitive. My hair's thinning and falling out. I have no libido. I feel very unmotivated. Maybe I'm suffering with depression and anxiety, right? Does that sound like a person who is dealing with an abundance of energy?
No, absolutely not. You're totally right.
These are all low energy symptoms. So the calories in, calories out, I don't want to call it a myth. It's real. And we can talk about the thermodynamics of it, right? Anytime you get online and you say it's not calories in, calories out, you are going to get 1,000 troll comments and you're going to get PhDs and MDs. I've been getting attacked for 8 years, right? That say, bro, forgot about thermodynamics. They'll make some snarky comment like that. And I'm like, no, your comment is telling me that you don't understand thermodynamics in a human body, which is an open energy system. So what's happening is when we shift this idea of calories in, calories out, we're assuming that all of the calories coming in are food, and that's creating energy. But it's taught to us as energy balance, energy in, energy out. Now, our bodies are not cars. We're not combustion engines. But if we talk about a car for a simple analogy, you can have a car with a completely full gas tank and no spark plugs. And that car will have no energy. It's not moving. It's not going anywhere. Yeah. It doesn't have the energy to do the thing it's designed to do because there is no catalyst, spark plug, to turn potential energy into energy. So people are consuming all of this potential energy, right? My cell phone, if I put it in a Bunsen burner, it has a caloric content. If you burn it, it's going to raise 1 gram of water, 1 degree Celsius, whatever the calorie definition is. Everything has a potential energy in it. Food, the calories it's made up of, the potential energy, are made up of nutrients and micronutrients, fat, protein, carbohydrates, and then all your vitamins and minerals. Now, everything in your body, from glycolysis or beta oxidation through the Krebs cycle into the electron transport chain, which is how your cells create energy, has all these sensitive little steps. And they all require catalysts. You're causing reactions in the body all along the way. It's nutrients that do that, right? Cofactors and enzymes, all these vitamins and minerals that are required for energy production. So we have humans that are taking in a huge caloric content of something that is not species appropriate. It's not food. It's not meant for the human body. So what the body does to protect itself is it pulls these toxins out of the bloodstream and stores them as body fat. So you have this situation, right? Something we're dealing with right now, there's an epidemic of something called sarcopenic obesity, which is very new in human history. Sarcopenic obesity are people that are clinically obese, but they have osteoporosis, their bones are crumbling, and low skeletal muscle mass. But we tell those people eat less food. It's like, hey, your body is disintegrating internally, and you are storing body fat because you're loaded with toxins. And the only answer from the mainstream is, well, it's your fault. Just eat less. And that's how we got to where we are today.
I think about what you're saying, that we're eating all of this food that's not food. That, yes, even if it's true that it's calories in versus calories out, these aren't the calories that are being referred to when we say that these are calories that are not food calories. I think about how much of that we're eating and why. I mean, if you're eating Oreos, they're highly addictive. You're not just having one. Most people can't just have one. And you talk about this cycle of blame that we've been told, that we should have 2,000 calories per day, right, by the Food and Drug Administration. And if we can't, we're somehow failing and we don't have good self-control. And then on top of that, we're being given foods that are like as addictive as cocaine, I imagine, in terms of our desire. I mean, they're not foods they're not strawberries. We eat them and we want more. Most people cannot control that instinct, right?
Sure.
Which is why we want so much of it. Then you end up with, obviously, we're in a crisis right now. I don't think people understand how toxic these foods are. And I'm going to include myself in that. As I was getting ready for this interview, I am in no way, I want to disclose this. My children eat Cheetos. I've had Cheetos myself. I don't think about these foods. I hear about them being poisonous, but I don't think I understand the gravity of that to the degree that you've described it. Because thank God I haven't struggled with being obese or overweight. So it's not something that I've had to look. I could think about what you're talking about when it comes to fertility. And that would be something that I would weigh really heavily, which I really want to talk about. Yeah. But I think you're looking at people who they're being told something completely different than what you're saying about the food that they're consuming. And how are they supposed to do things any differently when these foods are continuing to be sold, Justin? They're still at the store, they're still available, they're still being pushed as being healthy. I mean, it's not when in the 90s, I feel like I was drinking Diet Coke and reduced fat wheat thins, and we were all like, no fat, no fat, no fat, right? And all of that was being pushed to us as being healthy. Now we're being pushed totally different, but equally harmful, if not more harmful foods. What do people do about that? Where do they begin?
I mean, one, I'll touch on the last point maybe because the fat piece, the low fat thing is so important, right? Because without saturated fat and cholesterol are precursors to all of your sex hormones. Estrogen, testosterone, all of it, right? So that advice you're given years ago that came out, low fat, low fat, low fat, is part of the infertility epidemic, which is huge, right? But the thing that people have to ask themselves, everything that I teach, ultimately I teach freedom. That's it. I'm going to help you escape toxic diet culture. I'm going to go into your Instagram feed with you and click the little 3 dots and say, don't show me this on every bikini picture, every 6-pack abs, every fad diet bull, what, I don't know if I can use profanity in your podcast, but we're going to get rid of all that stuff. We're going to get rid of all that stuff, because you have to understand your health and wellness journey is a personal development journey. This is 99% emotional and psychological, because I'm going to ask you to reject everything that you've been told. One of my favorite quotes of all time is, anytime you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. 90% of adults in America have clinical metabolic dysfunction, at least one marker of clinical metabolic dysfunction. So when you see that, and then you look around a grocery store and you realize 90% of what's here is ultra processed junk, why would I continue to do what everybody else is doing? Like you said, if we use overweight, obese, and the term morbidly obese, which is like, this is actually going to cause a problem for you, your longevity, you could die from this. Those 3 categories equate to 75% of the population in America. So at some point, you have to ask yourself, why am I pushing this boulder uphill? Because it truly is as simple as food versus poison. If I were to, take any adult American, maybe even children, and we just have a table and I put like a grass-fed steak on one plate and strawberry Pop-Tarts on one plate, and I go, which one is food and which one is poison? No one's going to get that answer wrong. You have 2 options. You have to answer food or poison for both of these things. One has to be food, one has to be poison. Tell me which one is which. Nobody gets that answer wrong. Everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing, right? And again, like a lot of these people that are trained from the mainstream medical, academia or whatever, that are taught calories in, calories out, they have these blinders on. They're incredibly intelligent people. They're not stupid. But they were taught it's just about calories. And they're just making an assumption that they don't even know they're making, that everything that's available in a grocery store is food.
And it's not. It's not. I remember reading the book What to Eat by Marion Nestle when I was in college. I had to do a paper on it. And it was about the grocery store and the dynamics and the setup of the grocery store. And that essentially everything in the middle, you should just walk around the circumference of the grocery
100%.
store. Everything in the middle is processed, but it's still there. And I find as a human, I watch myself and I watch the way my brain works all the time. And because it's still there, because it's still being sold to me, I'm like, well, they couldn't possibly be selling me the stuff that's so terrible for me, but they can. And I love that you talk about this concept, which I think is so important. It's not just a concept. It's honestly the whole thing, which is this self-love component of weight loss and of taking care of ourselves and of becoming healthier people. And that we have essentially been told to hate ourselves into looking the way that we want to, right? And that we're failing by not being able to become healthier, thriving individuals. And I want you to talk more about that, because I remember being, I was a high schooler in the day of all of the celebrities being anorexic, there was no Instagram. These tabloids were everywhere, and feeling inadequate at 16, 17, 18 years old because I didn't have an eating disorder. I mean, I remember, and that probably giving me one, right? But I was never, no matter how much I starved myself, I was never able to get that skinny. And feeling like that was a character flaw for me and that there was something wrong with me. I want you to talk more about that, because I don't think enough people realize, and I see this all the time on my Instagram, following people and seeing what they're saying, that we're not going to get anywhere through obsessively shaming ourselves and through telling ourselves that we're not good enough. It's actually just the opposite. What does that look like when you are trying to become a healthier person?
An excellent motivator for changing your life truly is anger.
Anger, interesting.
It's a vibrational frequency that I can get women and men into, that helps them make the radical changes that they need to make, right? So some of the things we talked about, these studies from the past that we can go to or whatever, but like women, the reason why 85% of my clients are women is because you've been so hypersexualized your entire life, and you've been taught that your worth is based on the way that you look. Far more than men, right? Absolutely. It happens to men to some degree, right? I grew up watching Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone, and that really messed my brain up, But for women, it's constant. It's absolutely constant. It's makeup, it's hair, it's clothing, it's weight loss, it's diet pills, it's powders, it's everything. And ironically, like the thing that ends up happening is they're telling you this is what a woman should be. You're working hard to be that woman. And then all of a sudden, like the number of people that have come to me that are, 120 pounds, and they've done 3 failed IVF attempts and they cannot make a baby, the thing that they've told you is a woman is actually destroying your innate ability as a woman to bring life into the world.
And what do you think that is? Like, what do you think specifically is causing that 120-pound, physically, like externally healthy looking woman to not be able to conceive?
Well, one, I mean, if we go back through art history, right? Tell me how many 110-pound women you see in famous paintings.
Not many.
This is a very new thing. The whole like the Olsen twins when we were growing up, and like you said, Paris Hilton and all this stuff. That's very new. That's a new, Twiggy, the supermodel Twiggy that came out of nowhere, right? Like this is just a trend that happened. What ends up happening is I have something in my programs. One of the things I'm most proud of on this planet is my brand is called Clovis, and we have Clovis babies. Clovis babies are when women come to me and they have at least one failed round attempt of IVF. And they're in my program for, 8 months, 9 months, 12 months, however long it takes, and they conceive a child naturally. And people think I have some kind of crazy, I'm behind the scenes giving them injections or something. No, I'm not an MD. I can't prescribe anything. All I can do is tell them lifestyle things. And most of the time what I'm doing is doubling their food intake. Removing poison, doubling the amount of food they take. So the way that I describe this is food is only good for you in any amount.
Interesting.
Poison is only bad for you in any amount. Like if we see these shows that are like, so tragically sad, but apparently they're entertainment for people, is like a show like My 600-Pound Life or something. There is no one in the history of humans that has become 600 pounds eating organic beef and whole eggs and organic fruits and vegetables. It's never happened. It can't happen. That's cellular dysfunction that is changing our genetic expression in a completely unnatural way. So it's just this idea that you just want to be smaller in the world. And then the other piece that I have a podcast called How Weight Loss Ruined Everything. And the way that most people see health and wellness, because we have an obesity epidemic, it's like fat, unhealthy, skinny, healthy. And you said these women that appear healthy on the outside. So we all have stories and we all know people who are 55 years old and super skinny and they run marathons and then they drop dead of cancer. And the whole world goes, what happened? They're so healthy. That's the first thing out of everyone's mouths. Just because the only thing they're looking at, well, they weren't fat. So they're healthy.
Right.
And we missed this whole piece of internal metabolic dysfunction because if I ran that person's blood markers, I would have been able to tell them 5 years earlier, you're going to get cancer. You keep going this way. Let's fix this. It's so much more.
And that's because of what they're eating. That's because of what they're consuming. But the other side of that, which we talked about prior to this interview, is that, yes, you're right. Being skinny does not equate being healthy. But we also have this other direction that we've gone in, which is this extreme body positivity. And again, I would have really killed for that when I was in high school, like somebody to tell me that I was beautiful the way that I was. But we've gone to the extreme of like people who are extremely, extremely overweight in a way that is hurting their health, being told to just embrace that and to live that way and continue to live that way. And that is who they are. And that's also, do you find that to be toxic as well?
Totally. And we talked about this on the phone. What people don't understand is like, I own 2 supplement companies and I have a coaching company and I sell products to people, which meant that over the last 8 years, I had to learn about marketing. So I look around the world and there's this term marketing funnels, right? And I look around the world and I always ask myself, whose funnel am I in? Who's trying to sell me something right now? Somebody sold me this microphone. Somebody sold me these books, this t-shirt, this light that's above me so I can podcast correctly. Like everything was marketed to me in a way that made me purchase it. The body positivity movement is no different than that. And again, let's get to anger because a lot of the biggest body positivity influencers are being paid behind the scenes by food companies. They're being paid behind the scenes by pharmaceutical companies. The same way that influencers today are being paid millions of dollars in lump sums to say, I am supporting XYZ political candidate. We have to understand that influencers are the new billboards. Marketing companies have caught up to the fact that they don't have trust and authority. Influencers, like myself, have trust and authority. How do I know this? Because I've turned down 7-figure deals to not say shit that people wanted me to say. I know how this goes, right? So you have this when Dove comes out and it's this body positivity movement. Well, guess what? Dove's products are toxic and they disrupt your hormones and they're what's called xenoestrogens that make women estrogen dominant, which makes them store body fat. So let's just say, hey, listen, you're 300 pounds. It's okay. Keep buying our products. Dove, love the skin you're in, right?
They couldn't possibly be saying, love the skin you're in if they were selling me something toxic. I mean, I have those thoughts, right? I went to school. I almost minored in environmental studies. I went to seminars about the toxins in the
Mm,
makeup that we put on our faces as women and the cosmetics that we use as
yeah.
women. And then I get out into the world and Instagram blows up and there's all these influencers selling me things that I have known I shouldn't be putting on my skin, but they're telling me it's great. And they're not talking about the chemicals. They're not talking about how it has cancer causing chemicals inside of, and like these products largely are not, I mean, you can write fragrance on the back of a
Mhm,
perfume and not disclose any of what's gone into that. And
mhm.
that is okay. That is not against the law. These are
Exactly.
highly unregulated items coming off as being regulated. And I don't think we realize what you've just said, that influencers are the new billboards. We know that this is the primary way things are being sold to us, but we're still seeing it as like our Instagram bestie is selling us a cream. And how could they be telling us to put something on our face, something that they're putting on their face if it's toxic? In a lot of ways, I don't think they're necessarily in touch with that either. So we have
They
so
are.
many
Yeah.
different streams, right? Coming
Mhm.
at us and telling us what we should be putting on our bodies, what we should be putting into our bodies. I want to talk to you about this crazy statistic that you shared with me that I have not been able to stop thinking about when we talked before this. But we
Yeah.
talked before this, and it's going to get me into the back half of our interview, which is the how. I want to know about how you live your life and how you take care of yourself and how you eat every day, because I think a lot of people would really be curious to know that. You shared with me that in 1939, most Americans, I don't think there were really very many Americans at all that fit into the category of being overweight or obese. And how many calories do they consume every day?
The average male who weighed
Yeah.
155 pounds and was totally lean and healthy consumed 4,200 calories a day.
Okay. So this makes me think of all of my friends who have ever gone to Italy and they're like, Laura, I ate pasta all day, every
Yeah.
day, and I lost 7 pounds. My husband and I went to Italy once. We went for 2 weeks. We ate everything we wanted. I kid you
Mhm.
not. I came home. We were both like, our pants were too big for us. I've never eaten more. And it was all real food. It was
Of
all real
course.
food. So I'm so glad that you said that. What was the typical American diet back then? What were we eating? And when did things really start to change? Like, when do we see these chemicals really starting to infiltrate the American diet?
Well, back then it was almost exclusively animal products. And the reason for that is because monocrop agriculture was either in its infancy or hadn't really taken over. Like monocrop agriculture, this is where you take, people don't know the term, thousands and thousands and thousands of acres and clear cut it and dedicate it to a single crop. So we have
Yeah,
thousands of acres of corn, let's say. I mean, you could hike every wilderness mile on the entire planet and you're never going to find monocrops. You're never going to find one patch of land that just has one species living there. So in order to make that happen, you have to clear cut an entire ecosystem, kill billions of animals. You have to spray pesticides to get rid of the weeds, which kills the soil nutrient density, which is a whole nother topic we can get into. So you have to like destroy the environment to create monocrops. So for that reason, like in 1920, I think in 1920, still about 20% of Americans lived on working farms. It's far more difficult to get a large bolus of calories, to get a large amount of calories in the diet from plants than it is to get from animals. So the vast majority of people at the time were consuming red meat, eggs, butter, cheese, whole milk, and then bread. That was basically it. But the bread had 3 ingredients. It's like yeast, salt, flour, like that's it. If you pick up a
that's
pack
it.
of Wonder Bread today in a grocery store, you're going to find about 22 ingredients, most of which you can't pronounce, and you're going to find seed oils in that white bread. It's astonishing, right? So it was just real food. That's it. And then also, there are no screens. They're getting sunshine on their skin. They're outside a lot more. There are so many other aspects to this that play into it. But food was never villainized until this obesity epidemic started to begin. People start gaining weight unexplainably. And we're like, what is going on here? And then, thanks to people like Philip Morris, you blame the calories.
Before we continue with this episode of I Just Have to Say with Laura Max, this episode is brought to you by Styled by ALV. Styled by ALV brings you custom merchandise, styled events, and tablescapes here in Aspen, Colorado. From bridal and baby showers to corporate events, Styled by ALV specializes in branding and personalizing your celebration or gathering and making it an occasion to remember. If you want your friends and family to attend your Aspen gathering and never forget it because they brought home a piece of merch that they use all the time. I'm talking water bottles, hats, koozies, shirts, sweatshirts, cups, hats, you name it. Styled by ALV has it, and they're going to make it something your guests actually want to use and actually wear. They'll create a logo for your event. They'll come up with tablescapes that make your party absolutely gorgeous. You do not want to plan an event in Aspen, Colorado without Styled by ALV. If you want to work with them on your next event, you can head on over to Instagram, follow them at Styled by ALV, or visit their website, styledbyalv.com, and you can use the contact form to get in touch with them. Styled by ALV is your go-to resource for all things party planning in Aspen, Colorado. There are two things you just said that I really want to ask you about. First thing is you said animal products are what we were eating primarily in the late 1930s when Americans were consuming this number of calories and most of us were not overweight or obese. I think about the health advice we get today, Justin, and it's all like red meat is going to give you a heart attack. Cut out the dairy. Dairy is terrible. Is there something to that though? Because meat and dairy have changed so dramatically? Like, is it the same meat and dairy? Should we be eating meat and dairy today? Or what kind of meat and dairy should we be eating?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes and no, right? If we look at what's called CAFO operations, which is confined animal feeding operations or factory farming, feedlot cattle, right? All these terms, this is what like McDonald's is getting their beef from, these giant catastrophic. And again, right, we're going back to when people lived on working farms. They're raising their animals. They're raised on pasture. They're eating grass. They're eating a species appropriate diet. So what we've done to humans, basically, we've poisoned humans and made them completely abnormal. We've also domesticated animals, put them into large feeding operations and made them completely abnormal. So like an example of this is there are only two species in the world that get type 2 diabetes: humans and animals that humans feed. Cats, dogs. There's no dog or wolf in the wild who gets type 2 diabetes.
There's no other type of animal that gets type 2 diabetes?
No.
Besides humans and animals that humans are feeding?
Yes. So I'm being a little bit facetious because I say any animal, but this is like, cows. For example, like cats are obligate carnivores. They can only process meat. Their system can only process meat. And most of the food, cat food, that's like dry cat food in a bag, is like flaxseed and pea protein and like all this junk. So you have these cats that are like fat and diabetic because this is a non-species appropriate diet. So like if you just feed animals what they're designed to eat by their unique biology, there will be no health issues. Health issues don't exist.
So where do you go to get meat and dairy? Because obviously I know you're eating that. I mean, where are you? Are you going to Whole Foods? Like, were you checking the animal welfare store?
This is the things that you talk about, like the aisles in the grocery store. Walmart is the largest carrier of organic produce in the world.
Really? No way.
Yes. But people think about it as like, I could take you to a Walmart in your local area and I'll guide you through it and we'll find you 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef. I'll find you organic produce, fruits and vegetables. I'll find you organic frozen produce, which is even better because it's peak ripeness and then flash frozen. Whereas like the fresh produce has been on a truck for 10 days, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But you can find all of this stuff, pasture raised eggs that are not fed soy, that are USDA organic. Like you can find it in HEB. You can find it in Aldi. You can find it in Kroger. You can find it in Walmart. Like I said, right? This stuff is there. We're just completely unaware of it. And as you see, like this idea, we can stay apolitical here, which I always try to do, but like make America healthy again, and RFK Jr. coming out and talking about seed oils and that, hey, our Fruit Loops have a bunch of toxic ingredients that are illegal in Canada and Europe. So Fruit Loops, which exist in Canada and Europe, have different ingredients than the US, which means the manufacturing plant could just easily give us the same one that doesn't have toxic poison in it.
But they're not.
It's all demand driven. So we have to demand better products.
I hear you not wanting to get political, but I do for a second because I find it absolutely fascinating that we have this political party on one side that has claimed to always have the best interest of the American people at heart, right? And they're over here and they don't even realize what they're doing and what's happened, but they're advocating for these companies that are putting these chemicals in our food because over here on the right, the bad side, we've got RFK saying, make America healthy again and take this stuff out of our food. And he must be a quack because, he's teamed up with the wrong person. But because he's saying these things on the side that he's on, now we've got half of Americans who've claimed to have advocated for the health and well-being of Americans saying, no, these companies are great. This guy is a loon. I find it remarkable that we're so quick to just say, wait, keep the chemicals in our food. We don't want this disrupted.
Mhm.
One of the things that he talks about the most is seed oils. Why are seed oils so bad? What is a seed oil? Most people, I found this out the other day that canola oil is a seed oil. I did not know canola oil was a seed oil. What are seed oils and why are they so terrible? Like if we can make them in such an amazing volume and feed people with them, why are they so bad?
Well, they were an industrial waste product.
Really?
It's no, yeah, they were an industrial waste product, and Procter and Gamble came along and said, how can we feed this to people? Literally. They were like, okay, we have all of this waste. What can we do with it? Because all these companies, right? These companies are not evil. They just make terrible decisions because they're based on profit. They have to increase shareholder profits. They have a fiduciary responsibility to increase shareholder profits quarter after quarter. So they have to make decisions that mean bigger buying, bigger contracts, more money coming in, right? So Procter and Gamble actually paid the American Heart Association about $1 million to say that saturated fat was bad. And these new polyunsaturated fats, vegetable oils, seed oils were good. This is when like Crisco came out. Crisco is like pure vegetable oil, right?
I remember looking at the nutrition facts and seeing polyunsaturated and monounsaturated and thinking, oh, this is good for me.
Exactly.
I don't know when I stopped doing that.
The reason for that was the American Heart Association was non-existent. They were a tiny little organization. They couldn't get funding. They were going to actually completely go under. And Procter and Gamble came along and said, well, the American Heart Association, that sounds like a really great term, right? So let's convince people that saturated fat causes heart disease and that polyunsaturated fats are good for you. And they paid $1 million to do that to an organization that was dying and really needed money. And just so you understand, in today's dollars, it's about $21 million. This is a big lump sum of money that AHA got. So if you go through your grocery store today and you pick up a package of Cocoa Krispies cereal, you're going to see an American Heart Association stamp of approval on that cereal that this is heart healthy.
Yeah, which is wild. It's like full of shit. It's crazy. Like you don't even need to know that seed oils are bad for you to know that that's insane. It's candy. You put milk on it. It's candy with milk on it with all these artificial dyes. I mean, you feel gaslit, I think, too, because I'm a person, right? I'm going to see the American Heart Association logo on something and every part of me wants to believe that. And I think I do not blame anyone for feeling that way. You want to believe that these companies actually have your best interest at heart, but they're operating they're trying to survive and make a profit. Are saturated fats actually good for us? Like, should we be eating them? Because I know I was told my whole life to stay the hell away from saturated fats.
Yeah, I mean, I eat exclusively saturated fats.
Like you don't even eat regular. That's it. And where do you get your saturated fat from?
Animal products.
Animal products.
Animal products and coconut oil, like exclusively. That's it.
Coconut oil.
Meat, whole eggs, chicken, turkey, coconut oil. That's where all my fat comes from. Or dairy products, right?
I feel like my husband is an amazing, like, model, ideal audience member for this podcast because we talk about this stuff all the time. He loves like Huberman Lab. He loves all of the new information that is becoming more readily available for people to take better care of themselves. And he's also like a working professional with 3 children. Both of us like rarely sit down unless it's at our desk. We're always on the go, right? We live in a place where we're really lucky. Like there aren't really that many. Like if we go to a restaurant, we're not going to have the experience that I had when I lived in Texas, for example, and like everything was processed and there was just so much oil in everything. I feel like we just got healthier by moving here, which was amazing. But at the same time, it's not perfect. And you're saying all these things and, you know, they're very straightforward about how to take better care of yourself. But how do you actually do that? Like, what does your day-to-day life look like? Are you eating at restaurants? Are you like, do you ever stop at a convenience store to get a snack? Like, are you never eating these other foods? What does that actually look like for you in your life?
Anybody who wants to know what I eat, I mean, I probably eat 12 foods total. Like, honestly, for me personally,
there's 12 different foods, like eggs, vegetables, fruits, meat. Okay.
Yes, but that said, I have what's called a thermometabolic foods list. So this is a foods list that is all handpicked items by me that will increase your metabolism, increase your metabolic rate, and more energy. You'll produce more energy, which is the way to better health. So like anyone can just go to Instagram. I'm at Justin Nault Official on Instagram and DM me and just say foods list, and I will send that to you for free. And it has over 110 food items to choose from. And then what I teach you to do is use that foods list. I have a video walkthrough. It's like a 17-minute video walkthrough where it's like, you can use this in a grocery store and go get packaged processed foods. But it's like, all you have to do is look at the ingredients box, right? Like RX bars, they're like chocolate sea salt RX bars are all individual ingredients that are listed on my foods list. So if the ingredients are like, you know, cacao powder, almonds, egg white protein, salt, right? All of those individual items are on my foods list. So you now have a packaged food that is totally fine for you to eat. So if
Yeah.
you want an RX bar for a snack, or you want to go to the deli and grab some Applegate turkey breast and an apple, and now you have a lunch snack. Like, keep in mind, I founded this company when I was doing 300 shows a year as a musician. I was on the
Wow.
road constantly, and I
But do
had to
you ever
navigate.
like just really like, you're like, wow, I really need a Snickers. Like at any point in the year, are you like, I have to have this, like just once? Or you're
No.
really like an RX bar? Is you're like, what's dessert for Justin? Like, what's a
Yeah, no,
treat?
I mean, it's, maybe like an acai bowl with like fruit or something like that. But no, I would never eat a Snickers bar. And this is
You
really
would
like
never eat a Snickers bar.
the
Okay.
mindset shift that I try to help people make. And this is why we talked about this a little bit. Like, I start all my programs and all my clients with self-love exercises. Because
Okay.
if somebody you have to understand that what you're saying is a Snickers craving is a stress response. And it will take me a minute, but I'm going to walk you through all of this. Nobody in the history of the world has ever had a craving for a Snickers bar. Never.
Okay.
They have a craving for glucose, sugar, fatty acids, saturated fat. You see what I'm saying? They have a craving for energy. They have a craving for micronutrients. So what food companies right now have a career path that's called food engineers, right? They're literal food
They create
engineers
food.
that create food, like in Doritos, let's say, right? They tested
Yeah.
extensively. I mean, these are multi-six-figure people, scientists in labs, making sure that the powder of the nacho Doritos sticks to your fingers in just a way that you want to lick your fingers and you want to go in for more. And what they're doing is, this is, again, food versus poison. If you're only eating food, your whole system works perfectly, including your satiety hormones that tell you to stop eating. The human body is the most miraculous thing in the universe. So you have all these taste buds, and one of your taste bud centers is designed to notice the umami flavor. The umami flavor historically was only found in animal blood. The flavor of animal blood sends a signal to our whole metabolism that we are about to get protein in our bellies. And it releases the right enzymes and the right bile acids and all these things to digest protein. So what flavor scientists, food engineers did is they make this kind of salty, sweet, almost blood-like kind of flavor of umami. So you eat a Pringles, right? And Pringles slogan, bet you can't eat just one, right? Why does it feel addicting? Because you have a chemical symphony going on that's saying protein's coming, protein's coming. And then you eat 10 Pringles and there's zero protein in Pringles, right? So you're not getting any of the vitamins and minerals, and you're not getting the protein that the body is expecting. So the body sends a signal to the hypothalamus, eat more, eat more, eat more, eat more. We need these nutrients, but we're not getting them. And this is why if you have a home full of ultra processed junk, you have no chance of being optimally healthy, because you're going to eat the whole sleeve of Pringles. You're going to eat the whole sleeve of Oreos, but you don't have a craving for those foods. You've just programmed yourself that that's food. So if you were to get an organic banana instead of the Snickers bar, you're going to have that satiating feeling, right? So people say, well, if your theory is true, Justin, then we could just eat 10,000 calories a day of whole foods and we never get fat. You would vomit before you could eat 10,000 calories of real nutrient dense whole foods, because your satiety hormones would be satiated. Your hypothalamus would behave in a way where food would actually start to repulse you and you wouldn't eat it anymore. But if you're eating things that are designed by food engineers to be addictive, you can eat 3,000 calories of Doritos, no problem.
Wow. Yeah. That's incredible to think about. I mean, I'm just thinking about our diets and how much we eat because of how addicting our food is and how far we are. I mean, what you're describing, you have this food list and what you eat every day, and it's there and it's in the grocery store. But it is, you have to really, really, really focus on prioritizing this in your life and even having the information. And there's just so much that's being sold to people that I think makes it so difficult to actually access that information. What do you do when you go to a restaurant? You have things on your food list and you do your best. I mean, do you ask what the food's being cooked in? What does that look like for you?
I ask what my food's being cooked in, and I say, go ask your chef. I call it an allergy because it is an allergy. We're all allergic to seed oils, trust me. And they go talk to the chef, and the chef comes back and tells me what they use. And I say, okay, can you cook? Do you have real butter, not margarine? Do you have real butter? Usually they say yes. Okay, can you cook my food in butter? Cool. Now that means I can't order fried chicken. Like the fry-later is only going to be seed oils for sure, right?
Yeah.
But I tell you, people feel weird about doing this because that's a whole people pleaser, self-love tendency thing. Like, oh, I'll actually poison myself to not upset my server. Yeah, no problem. Right? It's crazy. My fiance and I have done this in over 20 countries. I've never had a single problem in any restaurant in 20 countries. I've never had someone be like, get out of here with your request. I'm like, I have the monies, you have the food. Let's make an
Yeah.
exchange here. Can you just make my
Sure.
food the way that I want it to? Like, think about somebody going into a food with celiac disease, right?
Yeah.
The chef is like, cool, let me make you something special. Okay.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me
So
help
yes.
you.
And then also, like you said, where you live, I live in Austin, Texas. This is a hack for anybody. Download the app Seed Oil Scout, SEEDOIL Scout, Seed Oil Scout, right? Seed Oil Scout is a map like Google Maps that shows you all the restaurants, and it's crowdsourced. So people go to restaurants and they say, hey, can you cook my food in butter, blah, blah, blah. And then they report back to Seed Oil Scout. So in any major city, I've used this in Costa Rica. I was in Costa Rica, Santa Teresa, and I used Seed Oil Scout. Hey, I found this place, they cook with no seed oils, right? So you can find these places because people are waking up to this. So that's like a good example. But here in Austin, there are if you guys live in Austin, like The Well, Picnic, Dai Due, there are all these places that like advertise, we don't use seed oils. We understand that seed oils are toxic and we don't use them. So my fiance is in her first trimester of pregnancy. We are ordering takeout all the time because only certain things sound good to her, right? But we're going to get like a burger from Dai Due, which is like local grass-fed meat, and everything's organic, and they cook in beef tallow. And then we either get her a gluten-free bun or she has no bun at all, right? It's all these little things that we can do. Like we eat like kings. And this is why I tell people, ultimately, I'm offering you freedom. Because when I walk into the grocery store and I only need to pay attention to 5% of it, I'm in and out of there in 15 minutes. Like there's no choice that needs to happen. I don't wake up every day and say, am I going to eat Chick-fil-A today? It's just not a part of my identity.
Yeah, it's not something that you would even consider. It's like taking away choices actually makes things easier.
You can speak to this much better than I can, right? So like my fiance is the founder of a beauty company, and massive beauty company. She was like incredibly successful. And we talk about this all the time with beauty products and everything. It's like in marketing, there's a term called LTV. This is lifetime value of a customer. How many dollars can you extract from a customer, right? If a man uses Old Spice deodorant when he's 13, he's going to be using Old Spice when he's 55, right? It's just the way that it goes.
Right,
so the lifetime value is very long. So if we go back to everything we said today, and you're a woman who decides, you know what? I don't wear makeup. Hair conditioner is a scam, so I'm not going to use that either, right? Like I'm going to use like Dr. Bronner's soap is like my body wash and my hair shampoo and everything. I don't wear any makeup. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like your lifetime value, it becomes zero. Nobody can sell you anything.
Sure.
So you're no longer valuable to them. So they have to convince you that you're not good enough. So you keep spiraling
in order to get you to buy things. Well, yeah, I mean, I think especially the skincare industry is a very good example of that. Just like, I mean, look at where we are now versus even 5 years ago. All of a sudden, as a woman, I need like 6 products that I just use in the morning before I put my makeup on, in order to be quote unquote good enough. And it's really incredible to watch all that unfold and to see like, wait, can we ask ourselves, like, did we actually even need these? Like even 10 years ago, like, is this like, do we need them now? I mean, it sounds like you work with a lot of women, especially. And I think fertility in particular is a huge issue right now. And I've always thought of fertility being tied to infertility being tied to birth control, like overuse and just use in general. What would you want women to know about what's been fed to them in terms of not eating fat and not eating certain types of foods and taking certain types of supplements and certain types of medication? Like, what do you wish every woman in particular knew after listening to this episode?
Yeah, the most, I can sum it up in a few words. Just food is not bad for you. And it never has been. So the food versus poison thing is so important. Like food is not bad for you. And then understanding this idea of 2,000 calories a day, which is on every nutrition facts panel, that's about enough calories for an 8-year-old child. There's no adult
really
that should be eating less than 2,000 calories a day. And this idea of 2,000 calories a day, when that came out, there was not a single dietitian, doctor, nutritionist even in the room. It was made by politicians. So they do these things called food frequency questionnaires, and they have people they say, how much food do you think you're eating on a daily basis? And they have some number, 100 people or whatever, fill out this survey. And they say, oh, look, the average person says they're eating 2,200 calories a day. So they just round it down to 2,000. And turns out that on food frequency questionnaires, what we know is that most people are off by usually more than 50%. Right? So
wow. Like they're eating 50% more than they realize or 50% less?
Usually more, but it could be less as well. So what I'm saying is
this
2,000 calorie number is completely arbitrary. It's made up out of nowhere based on horrible data. Like if you try to do science this way, people just laugh at you. Be like, this is crazy. And we all believe that this is the thing, right? Like you talked about RMR. My resting metabolic rate, if I lay on the couch and do nothing, is 1,975 calories.
Right. So if you're only eating 2,000 a day, you're not going to be laying on the couch all day. You're going to be moving. That's not going to be enough.
Exactly. So this is the calories in, calories out, where thermodynamics are actually real, right? If you're a woman and you need, let's say, 2,500 calories a day, and you're eating 1,100 calories a day, your body is an adaptation machine. Your body is responding to the external environment. So you're sending a signal of famine to your body, right? There is a scarcity of food in my environment. That can be the only explanation for why I'm not giving my body more food. So what organism that's primary focus is to survive is going to bring another mouth to feed into an environment that is already signaling scarcity and famine? It doesn't make any sense.
Wow. Yeah, I've never thought about that before, but you're totally right that, well, why would our body be able to do that? Because our body also, correct me if I'm wrong, holds on to the fat on our body. If we aren't eating enough, it slows down our metabolism, right?
Exactly. And this is the thing, right? Like when we talk about trolls online, people like to say like, well, you've never seen a fat person come out of a prisoner of war camp, right? That's their argument. So like clearly eating less makes you skinny. Right. So one, we're back to the assumption that skinny is healthy, which is not correct. Right. Those people are not metabolically healthy.
They were not healthy. Yeah.
And two, they're not being fed poison. You see, poison makes you fat. Poison makes you store excess body fat. It's a stress signal that is a survival mechanism that the body starts to store body fat. Right. So if you have someone in a prisoner of war camp that's getting 500 calories a day of white rice, right, they're not eating Snickers. They're not eating Doritos. They're not drinking Coca-Cola. So they're not being poisoned in that way. So yes, the body starts to eat its own tissue and it just like melts away. And then like assuredly, people coming out of prisoner of war camps, their bodies aren't like, let's make a baby. We're super healthy. You know, it's so twisted. The whole view of this is just demented.
It's incredible to think about. I mean, what an incredible machine our body is, that it can take care of us in this way, right? And I think the more that you say, the more I think about that. And we have these incredible bodies that are so intuitive and so great at doing what they need to do in order to keep us alive. It's really a wonder to think about. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about this, because your most viral video on Instagram is related to the very controversial subject of alcohol. Do you drink any alcohol at all?
Not anymore. No.
Not anymore. So why your video that your viral video talks about alcohol actually stopping, not slowing down, but stopping the fat burning process while we're actually drinking it. Can we talk more about that?
Yeah. And this is important, right? So while I'm here and we can talk a bit more like scientifically about it, is like fat oxidation, right? Beta oxidation in the body is never going to turn off. It's never going to stop. Like nothing's actually stopping, but things get downregulated and upregulated. So if I'm in a 90-second video with you, I'm going to try to help you see, hey, this is really damaging. All of your efforts for fat loss are being sabotaged by this alcohol thing. Because the truth is, like, we're talking about ethanol metabolism. So again, all those little systems I told you, all the little steps that go into energy creation, they get disrupted by metabolic toxins. So when you take something like ethanol that's a toxic, that's a toxin that comes into the system, somebody can just Google, steps of ethanol metabolism and look it up, right? So what happens is this toxic substance has to be converted into a less toxic substance, which creates a metabolite, right? This byproduct of ethanol metabolism. And all these things are basically creating reactive oxygen species in the body. So it's quite nerdy. Right? It's the same thing with seed oils, right? It's like seed oils, I'd have to teach you step by step the biochemistry of what's happening all the way down to the electron transport chain and what's happening at the phospholipid membrane that is preventing ATP production, that is lowering the energy levels in your body, right? So it's like, how do we have this conversation? It's very challenging because people have 40-hour work weeks and they got 2-3 kids and they have partners and careers. It's like they're not studying human metabolism. So it's easy for the wool to be pulled over their eyes about this stuff. And that's all I'm trying to do is express it out. It's like, hey, listen, you can drink alcohol for sure. Just understand it's never healthy for you. It's never going to help you in your body composition goals, your health and wellness goals. It is an actual metabolic toxin. And if your body is healthy, yes, you can manage that toxin and your detox pathways will work in a specific way and get it out of your system. And you're going to survive that, right? It's the reason why the hangover from one drink versus 10 drinks is a much different experience. It's the level of toxin coming into your body. But then when we look at this overall and what you and I have just discussed for an hour is that you're being poisoned every day at every meal. And you're trying so hard, you're cutting calories, you're working out in the gym, you're trying to taking all the supplements, and then you're drinking alcohol 3 nights a week. And it's just more poison on the system. This is what I'm saying is like, I'm offering you freedom. Optimal health and wellness is as simple as eat real food, don't eat poison, go for walks, get the sunshine on your skin, sleep well, and surround yourself with people who love you and treat you well. That's it. So why are you spending money on Beachbody and CrossFit and all this stuff? It's insane. It's because you're in a marketing funnel and people are selling you shit. That's it.
Well, it's so intuitive what you just said. And I think because there's so much noise around all of us telling us what to do and countering our intuition, it can become much more difficult to hear that. But I'm very glad that you brought up walking, because walking is my primary, if not only form of exercise, which I know is fine, but like, I've started to not believe that anymore, that like I need to be going to spin class and Pilates, et cetera, which I can't anyway. I couldn't even if I wanted to. Like I have absolutely no time to do that, but I love walking. I have my Oura ring. It tracks like my steps and I love to walk. And even if I'm not tracking my steps, that's my favorite thing to do. You talk about how walking is really the only exercise that we need. I think that would surprise a lot of people. Why is that? And is there any benefit to kicking ourselves and kicking our own asses in the gym? I mean, is that actually not beneficial?
Yeah, it's very beneficial, right? Like, but the thing is, we have to understand what's normal and not normal, right? Like, I weigh like 165 pounds and I'm like 135 pounds of muscle. That's ridiculously abnormal. It doesn't make any sense, right? And it's because I grew up watching Arnold Schwarzenegger and I like to be able to make my pecs move, right? It's like this shit, but it doesn't mean that that's optimal health and wellness, right? Like you don't see 108-year-old centenarians walking around, Italy and they have 80 pounds of extra muscle on them and they look like The Rock. It's not normal, right?
No,
so
looking
I am
like that is not
aware.
normal.
Yeah, I've built an unnatural human body, right? It's just if you go to my Instagram and you see a picture of me shirtless and you'll be like, oh, this guy looks good, right? But that doesn't mean that if you go back to the 1939, right, that 155 pound man, he wasn't carrying 60 pounds of excess muscle. He was just
he didn't know Arnold.
Exactly. So here's a fun thing for all of your listeners. Go to Google and just Google Hugh Jackman 2000 versus 2024. You're going to find a picture side by side of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine in the year 2000. Now, a couple years after this, he was voted the sexiest man alive. But YouTube didn't come out till 2010, right? There was no social media, there's no Instagram, no nothing at this time. When you see that picture of him in the X-Men movie from the year 2000, and you compare it to 2024, he's shredded. He's like 4% body fat, monstrous muscles. And we all know he's on testosterone. He's on steroids. He's fasting. He's doing all these crazy things that are damaging his health to look that way. And the 2000 version of Hugh Jackman, he couldn't sell fitness plans on Instagram today because people would call him chubby. So our body image has been completely warped. Our brains are broken. We don't know what healthy bodies look like anymore because of Photoshop and Instagram and steroids and all of these things, right? So to go way back to your question of is exercise beneficial? Yes, having muscle mass on your frame is one of the major factors of longevity. So we may hear, elderly people, they fall down, they break their hip and they die. Their hip broke before they hit the ground. And this is osteoporosis and sarcopenia, which is lack of lean muscle mass. So you don't need to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You don't need to look like a CrossFitter, but you do need to have a functional, lean, healthy body. And some degree of resistance training will help you with that. And this is when I see these trainers and stuff online, I'm like, listen, guys, I was running nutrition for UFC fighters. I know performance nutrition maybe better than anyone I've ever met, right? But when I take a woman fighting in the UFC who's 136 pounds and I need her to weigh in at 115 pounds 2.5 weeks later, I'm going to get that weight off her and none of it was good for her. It was only bad for her. It was extremely stressful, but she's going to show up and she's going to have ripped six packs. She can be shredded. She can be strong as hell, right? It doesn't mean that that's the path to longevity. So when you're asking the question of fitness, my first question back to you is going to be, what is your goal? And then I'm going to help you hit that goal. It's that simple.
Wow. It's incredible, Justin. I'm so grateful to have had you as a guest today. I could talk to you for a whole other hour. Before I let you go, why don't you tell my audience how they can connect with you and work with you and buy your supplements? Tell us the whole thing.
Yeah. It's super easy. I mean, for anything related to connecting with me, just go to my Instagram. It's Justin Nault Official. All of my social media channels are Justin Nault Official, and just follow me, hit the little message button and say, hello, I'm here to chat. And you're going to get me. You're not going to get a team member. No, it's going to be me. I'm going to say, hey, what's up? How can I help you? Where did you come from? Did you hear me on a podcast? Do you want the foods list? Whatever it is, just connect with me on a human to human level. And the first thing I'm going to try to help everybody see is that you're not going to magically get healthy when you lose 50 pounds. You're going to start living as a healthy person today. And the consequence of that will be becoming healthy. So step one is me helping you understand that your body's not doing anything wrong. Your body is perfect exactly as it is. If you're storing body fat, it's not a bad thing. It's your body protecting you from the unnatural environment that you've placed it in, and it's asking for help. So we're going to start with self-love.
I love that. Justin, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Thank you all for listening. You've been listening to I Just Have to Say with Laura Max, and I look forward to joining you all again next time. If you want a link to Justin's website and his Instagram, you can head to the show notes. In this episode, Justin, thank you again for coming on, and I hope you all have a great week.